yeshiva, but they have this requirement that I can't meet. I went to that yeshiva, they have that requirement that I can't meet. Anyway, we said goodbye. I'm sitting upstairs in the, my little room up there, and I'm looking at the ceiling, and it was like the closest thing that I know to a bat kol, and these words come down through the ceiling, open a yeshiva. I came downstairs, and I said to Judy, this is what happened. So she says, okay, we're doing it. And I had to leave on the plane that night. But in the meantime, we called up Rav Raz, who was just recently married and was learning with David Mayan. And I said, we want to open a yeshiva. Are you willing to take it on? Remember?
Take it on. He said, will you come teach?
Well, that means take it on. and that's
Could you find out now?
And Baruch Hashem, it's been great ever since then. And Yis Hashem, thank God we're continuing with Rav Raz and Baruch Hashem. So Baruch Habo. I'm going to get a stool. Somebody has an extra stool there? Yeah. No, stay where you are. Just, what I'm going to do then?
No. I can't teach you.
He may. You're going to give Eliyahu a stool.
No, baby is the
Okay, but you have one.
Babies are still. Okay. So, last night, yesterday, I went on the YouTube to find some shlomo to put on, have in the house while we're preparing for last night for the shir. And then I louder. Turn the volume up. Anyway, I know, I hear. I'm trying. I can't see you either, but I can hear you. So, I'm gonna try. So I went on the YouTube and I saw there it said this one what do you call it? Video. It wasn't a video, it was art. But anyway, it said Shlomo Karlebach B'Shuv Hashem 1. I was like, wow, I don't remember ever hearing a nigun for B'Shuv Hashem. I don't even know what that is, B'Shuv Hashem, right? So I said, okay, I'll turn it on. I opened it up. And this is the words I hear first. He's like, okay, let's sing a nigun you don't know. That's what he said. He said, this is one of the old ones from A House of Love and Prayer. And so he started singing. I mean, I'm sure there's people here who know it. For me, it was really good. I was like, okay, we're going to sing one we don't know. I don't know. So, and I've been singing it ever since. So it goes like this. YESHIVAT SIMCHAT HYINU KECHOLIM YESHIVAT SIMCHAT So every year, Rav Shalom puts me in this place. Okay, I have to talk about Rav Shlomo. There's all these people who know, 1,000 times more than me, who saw him 1,000,000 times more than me, and so I'm like, okay, but I also know that the truth of every tzaddik, every teacher, every special person is that anybody who connects to them has their own little chilek. It's not like, okay, well, we all heard this. We didn't all hear. Everybody knows that Har Sinai, we all stood there together. But when it actually happened, right? So everybody heard it differently. And I love this as a special midrash about that. The Midrash Tanchuma says nobody never talks about what happened afterwards, right? What happened after Matan Torah? So we know Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the mountain, but the Midrash says, so what was everybody else doing? He said, so the Midrash says, Mekablin dein min dein. And that's my picture in my mind. I don't know what really happened. Is everybody sitting around in circles sharing? This is what I heard. This is what I heard. This is what I got. This is, and that's how Torah is supposed to come down to the world, right? So there's a teacher. There's Moshe Rabbeinu, there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the first teacher, right? And then all the Talmidim sit around and they say, okay, I heard this, we heard this, so and there's a reason why every little Talmid or Talmidah got what they got, right? And that's what they're supposed to share. So I had the zchut 24 years ago. I'm not going to tell you, often I tell this whole long spiel about how I got there, but I went to, I was in Los Angeles, I was in university, and I went to, I heard about Rav Shlomo, I got, curious. I can't say I didn't know enough to be turned on, I just was curious, So I walking down one of the streets in Los Angeles, and there's this, it wasn't even a flyer. It was like a Xerox piece of paper with, black and white. It just said, Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, a Hasidic happening. But it wasn't even a flyer. It was like you hardly notice it, And it said there, 613 Hancock Park. Okay, so yeah. So, that was, anybody who knows, that was the Ritchie's house in Los Angeles at the time. So, and I can't talk enough about that night. But what I wanted to share with you is that after many years, I was zoche about a week and a half ago to get a recording of that night. And it was I've been looking for it, and Baruch Hashem, it's a big schut. So I know, first of all, I know now everything I heard. I remember because
You were there.
And I remembered some things which allowed me to know that this was the night. But I know a lot more, right? Because I heard it again. And Bichlal, I think we should all be modeh l'Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's unbelievable that we live in a day and age where, just imagine you could hear a recording of Rabbi Nachman, the Baal Shem Tov. I mean, just, it's makes you shiver, it's like, and of course, that's how Hashem wanted, because, probably if we saw a video of the Baal Shem Tov, we'd probably all just fall down, so, but, it's an amazing thing, that these special teachers, we live in a time where, you can actually, in a real kind of, in a real, not just in an inner spiritual sense, but, in a real kind of, tachlis way, they're alive right now. Because, hey, go on YouTube, go on. No, it's an amazing thing. So I want to just say thank you to Kadosh Baruch Hu for that. And so the one thing I remembered from this night, that I remembered a few things. I remember the first nigun. I mean, the truth is that everything was very weird to me at the beginning. And then it was probably about a half an hour, 45 minutes. I was sitting there waiting for Shlomo to say hello to everybody. And, well, I don't know, maybe I didn't get there first, So he sat down and played his guitar. And I remember, the first thing I remembered, one of the ways I knew this was the night, I remembered the first nigun he sang. But the truth is, I didn't remember as they started whistling before he started singing. By the way, it's a sweet thing, Shlomo whistled in a very special way. But the truth is, I had this unbelievable era. One day I was learning with my good friend, my brother Shaul. We learned Gemara together for like many years now. So we were learning Gemara Chulin. And the Gemara Chulin is going through all these birds and animals that are, kosher, not kosher. It's like a whole list there in the Gemara. And then it just starts talking. And it says, there's this bird called a sharkan. A sharkan. I don't think it's the sharkan that we call today in Hebrew sharkan. It's some kind of whistling bird. So the Gemara says there, if you hear the whistling bird, so Geula is coming. Right? It brings a pasuk from Yeshayahu, so I was like, oh, it blew my mind. I was like, oh, it's not, he wasn't just whistling, it was like a whole, I didn't know, it was just, so, so he took out the guitar and he starts, that was the first nigun I heard. And I also remember it because I remember afterwards he sang the words, and I asked this rabbi who brought me there, I said, where are the words from? That's how I remembered which nigun it was, because I asked him where are the words from. He told me it's from Kedusha. It was really special. And so I'm not going to go through the whole hour and a half. I thought it was 3 hours, but that was my memory. Everything in my memory from that night was very big. Everything was big, but it was big. But one other thing I remembered was there's a story. And all I could remember was there was a grandfather and a grandson on a bench. And I have to tell you that for all these years, I'm looking for the story. I'm asking all these old Shlomo Chevron, and nobody knows the story. What's the story of grandfather, grandson on the bench? Nobody knew. And I didn't know. Maybe I remembered it wrong. Whatever. No. What? Oh, you know the story?
You know it, don't you? I mean, you eventually found it.
I did. No, I was gonna give it over, but you can give it over. No, but the truth is, I'm really happy to hear that, because the truth is, I was thinking that maybe this is the only night he ever told that story. So apparently not. But Mamash, I'm telling you, I asked all kinds of people, and nobody knew the story. So I thought maybe I remembered it wrong, and I was so happy. I was like listening to it. I was listening to it with Shlomo Katz, and he's like, oh, we're sitting on the bench together, and I was like, oh, it's there, you see? So, and it's very deep for me, the story, because there's two things. I never know, Shlomo never, I don't know if he ever did, but I know that at least my experiences of him, he never like had a starting time and ending time of his learning, of his concert or whatever. It started when it started and it ended when it ended. So, I never know when the rest of us are a little bit less beyond the world. So, we kind of, okay, I have to teach from this time to this time. I have to, that. So how do you fit it in? What do you give? What do you talk about? What do you not talk about? So, but I was thinking two things that I wanted to share that I got also on that night, but bichlal, like all of my limited kesher with Rav Shlomo, and I say limited even though in my heart it's not limited, but it's I was 4 years, that while he was alive. And then it started getting deeper, the year after, Let's just tell you a little small thing, like so Rosh Hashanah was niftar on Thursday night, Parashat Vayera, 20 years ago, 21 years ago. How come I keep thinking it's 20? Anyway, 21 years ago. And, I was in the army. I got out from the army, and I had friends in Kiryat Moshe here, and I went to daven at Merkaz Harav. And I go there, and on one of these walls on the side, there's a little petek. It says Baruch Le'emet with Shlomo Karlov, And I was sure, there's just some Ram in the yeshiva called Shlomo Karlov, because how could they just have a little petek? I don't know. I didn't understand. And then, I couldn't be there. The Levaya was on Monday, so on Thursday I got off. I went to the kever, and I didn't know anything about kvarim at the time, and I didn't know that until you put the matzeva up, all they do is they put a little card that says the name, So I go to the kever, and then again, there's this little petek. It says Rav Shlomo. I was like, "Come, what's going on here?" It's Rav Shlomo. Like, what's going? Just this little petek everywhere. Like what? Like he's not so important. Like, well, I don't understand. It broke my heart. But I understand now that the truth is, and maybe I'll share a little Torah from Rav Shlomo about Parshat Vayera. So Avram Avinu, when he gave the guests, the angels, he gave them water, right? He says, "Yukach na me'at mayim," take a little bit of water. So Rav Shlomo said, "I don't understand. Like what he was, Pitom." Rav Shlomo was like skimpy on water. Shlomo, Avram Avinu skimpy on water. Like, well, give him a little bit of water. He's like, what do you mean give him a little bit of water? Give him to drink. Well, a little bit of water. Rivka, remember Rivka? She's like, okay, I'll give you all your camels, everything. Avram Avinu, no, I just, So Shlomo said that the teaching there was, the water of Torah, the water of the truth of Hashem, a little bit is stronger than everything in the world. You just need a little bit, Like, you don't need a whole lot, right? Just a little bit, and that's stronger than everything else in the world. So now I a little bit understand, it's like, well, a little petek of our Shlomo, that's stronger than, it could be, a whole billboard, but that's the strongest. So, So there was two things that I wanted to share that I got, the little bit that I got from Rav Shlomo, and Baruch Hashem, it's very special to be here, a place where people very conscious of Rav Shlomo all the time, especially Rav Shlomo and Judy, who, everybody knows how they're giving Rav Shlomo space, more space in the world and more space in the world. And it was bichlal, it's a big zchut to be learning and davening. Last night, Baruch Hashem, I got to go to Rav Shlomo's kever. I've been doing that like 17 years now. Every on the yahrtzeit at Chatzot, I always go. First time I went, there was nobody there. In the whole Beit HaKvarov, there was nobody there. It was awesome. And la'at, now if you go there, basically all night long, there's a steady choir of yeshiva bachers like singing nigunim all night long. The kever is like, they switch off, who's there, but it doesn't matter, it's like the nigun keeps going. But the two things I wanted to share. So one thing, everybody knows Rav Shlomo taught from everywhere, all the Rebbe's, and he you could say who was Shlomo's Rebbe, is just say basically everybody. I mean, anybody you can think of, he would bring. But there's really two basic places that Rav Shlomo taught from. One was Ishbitz, that as far as I understand, he kind of rediscovered. I don't know, so nobody was really learning Ishbitz until Rav Shlomo found the book in a secondhand used bookstore. Pritom opened up in Shilach and was like, oh, that's what I heard. I don't know, I wasn't there. But and then it's Rabbi Nachman, and Rav Shlomo said everybody needs two Rebbes. I'm sure a lot of you heard this, right? You need your Rebbe and need Rabbi Nachman. And at least on two occasions, maybe more, somebody asked him, so who's your Rebbe? So he said, I'm 2 times Rabbi Nachman. So they want to share with you just a little bit from a Torah in the Likutei Moran. And every Torah in the Likutei Moran, when I start learning, I'm like, oh, Shlomo. It's like, and now, obviously, he learned the whole book and he lived the whole book, so that's why every Torah is like, oh, Rav Shlomo, but it's still a pellet to me every time. So Rav Shlomo says, oh, Rabbi Nachman says, I already once this week, there was something that Rav Shlomo said in the name of the Ishbitzer, and I called up somebody and said, where's in the Ishbitzer? And he said, well, that's really Rav Shlomo. He's the Ishbitzer, he's the new Ishbitz Rebbe, but anyway, so Rabbi Nachman says, when someone has shame, cherpa, he says, cherpa. Well, shame isn't really such a good word. It's even deeper than that. So it breaks their heart. And the tikkun for that is to connect your heart to the nekuda that's shayach for your heart at this moment. In other words, what does cherpa mean really? It means I'm not living, I'm not connected, I'm not, drawing my strength and doing the things I need to do in connection with what's really, really true for my heart at this moment. And that's why I feel the shame. That's why I feel the pain. The real pain is I'm not, Am Yisrael's real pain, so we have a lot of, L'tzarenu, we have a lot of pain, especially lately, and a lot of, tzarot, and this year started with a lot of dinim. Bezrat Hashem, maybe we'll sweeten some of it a little bit today. But, and our learning and our singing and our should be lischut refuah shlema for all the wounded people from the last, few weeks and yesterday also, and this morning. Bezrat Hashem. It's even hard to give names. There's so many names, unfortunately. But Bezrat Hashem should be refuah shlema. And the real pain, the deepest pain is that we're not connected. We're not totally connected to the Nakuda that in our heart we know is really where we need to be right now. So Rabbi Nachman says, so of course the tikkun is to connect to that Nakuda, right? But how do you connect to that Nakuda? How do you know what it is that's in that moment? But first of all, I want to say, one of the big chidushim that Rav Shlomo brought also to me, but bichlal in the world of Torah, the world bichlal, was, every moment there's something right now. And I can't just come and try to impose some predetermined, box or framework. This is there's a nakuda that has to do with my heart right now, and that's what Hashem wants me to be connected to. And so every moment is something different, so deep for me that Rav Shlomo left in the parshas of Avraham Avinu, because everybody knows that Avraham Avinu's connection to the Torah was not, something he read in a book. There were no books. It's not something that he learned from his Rav or from his, Cheder teacher. He didn't have. It's something he learned from what Hashem was teaching him right now. Right now. And that's the koach of Avraham Avinu, which is a very, very deep thing, and it's a not so simple learning for us as Jews, for us as bichlal, as people who need frameworks in order to function, but it's a really, how do I come at every moment? Okay, there's a nakuda right now, and this is what I need to be connected to. And if you don't connect to that, so in your heart, something's broken. In your heart, you can feel it. It's not exactly what I'm supposed to be doing now, because I don't even not focused on that. So Rabbi Nachman says, and Rav Shlomo, I really feel, everybody knows Rav Shlomo spent 30 years, 35 years going around everywhere, all over the world, and I don't know what his schedule is like a funny word for Shlomo. It's just what is it? Okay, I got to do this now. And that's now not all of us can live that way on a totally lamaisa way, but in the pnimiyut, in the deepest sense of what I'm going. Even if I go to the same place every day, today there's something. Right now there's something. And I need to know how to connect to what's the nakuda that my heart needs to be connected to now in order to really, really live a full life. That's the tikkun Rabbi Nachman's talking about. And Rav Shlomo was going around and in different ways saying that to people, about himself, and I even remember, I don't remember the story so well, but there's a story about, I really don't remember the story, but somehow in the story, it turned out that in this specific instance, Posek, Paskind, like this, one opinion in, that we don't hold by, but because of the circumstances, because of the way it was, and it's a deep thing to be a posek halacha, because you really need this teaching of Rabbi Nachman to be a posek halacha, because you can't, somebody asks you a question and the next person asks you the exact same question, it's not the same answer. It's never the same answer, right? Big poskim know that, right? Unfortunately, we got used to the books and to the internet and to, what's the answer? Okay, type it in and get the answer. You can't type it in and get the answer because there's an answer for you. So anyway, so Shlomo said, that daya, that opinion that we don't hold by, was in the world just for this one moment when that posek had to, that's the reason that psak came into the world. It's not really how we hold, except in this one specific instance that only happened once in the history of, it's unbelievable, right? So that's a teaching that I think Rav Shlomo was going around teaching. How do you need to connect, you need to be connected to what's going on right now that your neshama needs, right? Okay. So Rabbi Nachman says you need 3 nikudot, three things that, if you have these 3 things, then you can always be connected. And I'm not saying it in a particular order, although in the Torah, Rabbi Nachman says one order and then he says a different order. So, but first of all, you have to have your own personal connection to Hashem. You have to do Hitbodedut, you have to have your time alone with Hashem where you develop. This is my relationship with Hashem, where I talk. I'll try. Where I'm in communication, just me and Hashem. And if you don't have that, then you'll never know what your heart needs, right? Because it doesn't matter what the whole world tells you. If you don't have that nikuda, then you don't know. So that's the first thing you need Hitbodedut. And I just share with you my first meeting with Rav Shlomo that night at the Ritchie's. People say, they take what's the phrase, they pull the rug from under your feet. So I felt like I got the floor pulled out from under my feet and the walls and the ceiling. I just was like, what's going on here, Because everything I knew about life and what life's about and how do you live and how do you decide what to do things, okay, I wasn't I was only 17 years old, but I was already in university. I was like, okay, thought I knew things about life, So, and then I met somebody whose whole life all the time is living in the presence of Hashem. It's as simple as it is, right? And that's what life's about. That's what life's about. In a certain sense, I feel Rav Shlomo had a little bit, maybe a lot of what Rabbi Nachman said. Rabbi Nachman said, when I do Hitbodedut, when I am alone with Hashem, you know what my Hitbodedut is? I'm sitting talking to people, but I'm just talking to Hashem. I'm sitting talking to, but I'm just talking to Hashem. And I think Rav Shlomo had that because I felt every time I met him, okay, I'm just, Shlomo's there with Hashem. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for him. I don't know what that means for me, but okay. The second thing Rabbi Nachman says you need, again, I'm not specific order here, so I don't, we need all 3. So, is you need friends. You need friends. And he explains there, the reason you need friends is because every neshama has something that nobody else has. And in that something, this neshama is a Rebbe. This neshama came into the world to teach the world that something, right? It could be they don't have anything else, and most of their life they're just going around receiving. But there's something there that nobody else has. And so it's really important for you to not just be alone with Hashem, but also that you have friends who can teach you, who can give over to you that nikuda that you, and in that, you're a student of theirs, right? In that point. right in that place. And I have to say, I don't know, but I think it was a long, long time, even in Chassidut, since somebody said, okay, my thing is the Chevra. Rabbi Shimon said that, right? Rabbi Shimon said, I have my Chevra, right? In the Zohar, right? Baal Shem Tov, I don't know if he had Chevra students, I don't know, that's a good question. But, Rav Shlomo, everybody knows, is like Mechevra, right? And I think it wasn't just a sweet, like, okay, let's all be together and love each other. It's not just that. It's that I understand that everybody has that nekuda, and so I want to be in the chevra where people are shining to each other that nekuda, right? That point that they have. Right, kol chevra, right? And the third thing you need, Rabbi Nachman says, is you need a Rebbe. You need somebody who your neshama is connected to their neshama, and what their place is in your life is that's your guide, your teacher, your soul connection. And again, whoever the Rebbe is, right? I mean, Rav Shlomo came into a world, except for certain little pockets of Chassidut, people didn't know what a Rebbe is. And Rav Shlomo brought Rebbes to everybody, and of course, again, from what I'm connected to, so I heard about Rabbi Nachman that night from Rav Shlomo. And I have to say that Rav Shlomo talked about Rabbi Nachman before people were talking about now Rabbi Nachman is like every time I teach a new class, I say, okay, have you heard of Rabbi Nachman? Everybody laughs, But 30 years ago, people didn't laugh. Half the people, 3/4 of the people hadn't heard of him, right? But I saw a video of Rav Shlomo in 1973 on Israeli television saying, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbeinu Nachman ben Breslev Omer, on Israeli television, public TV, people didn't talk about Rabbi Nachman, Rabbeinu, it wasn't a word that, people didn't have that concept. I'm not saying nobody, of course, if you go to, Chassiduyot, you go to, if you go to, Bells, or you go to Bobov, you go to Chabad, but it wasn't like, oh, there's such a thing as a Rebbe. That's like a something you need in the world. People need a Rebbe, and I feel Rav Shlomo also brought that a lot to people, So these are the three things you need. And if you have these three things, then you're always going to be connected to what your heart needs to be connected to right now. And that's a big chidush also, because it's always new. And here's the teaching. I said this, I mentioned this before, that, there's this teaching from the Ishbitzer that really, can you read? It's Rav Shlomo's chidush, It says, Avram, from last week's Parsha, it says, Malkitzedek, who a little bit was Avram's Rebbe, because it's the only place in the Torah that you see somebody comes to Avram and gives him something. Always Avram's going around, he's giving people, he's blessing people, he's davening for people, he's fighting with people, whatever it is. But Malkitzedek is really the first person, maybe the only person, who came and he gave a bracha to Avram Avinu. And the Midrash says he was the Kohen, he was Shem, he was the Kohen, and he was giving that over to Avram Avinu. He's saying, okay, you're the next in line, right? Which is a big chidush. We always think Avram Avinu started everything, but it's an amazing thing to know he received it, right? So what did he give over to him? So it says he took out lechem v'yayin, right? Bread and wine. And I'm telling you, I looked through all the Ishbis books. I couldn't find this before I asked anybody. I was okay, where is this? So Rav Shlomo said, bread is the best when it's the freshest. The newer the bread, the better it is. right? Wine is the best when it's the oldest, right? So he was telling over to Avram, I want to tell you there's two things you need to know. Sometimes it has to be totally new. But also sometimes it has to be ancient. It has to be connected back all the way, you know. This is the two teachings that Avram needed, right? To give over, right? Lechem v'yayin. And that's what Melchizedek was giving over to him. So it's an amazing thing. So Rav Shlomo was, okay, there's a nekuda for my heart at this moment, so that means that it's always new. Always new. I can't ever stop and say, okay, I got it. Well, you got it, but that was yesterday. Hopefully you got it yesterday. But that doesn't mean that today you got it. Every day is mechadesh betuvo b'chol yom tamid maaseh bereshit. Which doesn't just mean, I look at the world and Hashem's doing something new. It means there's something new for me. Something new for me. And again, it could be that externally I'm doing the same thing I did yesterday, but it can't be the same. Rabbi Nachman said, if I daven today like I davened yesterday, my life's not worth anything. Now, that's very extreme, but, it's really true. Because today's not yesterday. Can't be. If today was yesterday, what we need today for, But at the same time, it has to be connected back all the way. And the deepest thing is that teaching about lechem v'yayin that's the teaching that Melchizedek, Shem, gave over to Avram. And what I hear in that is that basically saying if you have this secret, then you're connected to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Adam Arishon. And somehow that came to Noach. And Shem was the son of Noach, right? Melchizedek. And he's giving that over to Avram, right? There's these ancient secrets, teachings that are connected all the way back. And you have to have that if you're going to go on. You can't just be new. If you're only new, then there's something missing in the truth of what you're doing. It has to be something that goes all the way back. And I just want to share with you this story that Baruch Hashem, I'm not the only one in the room who knows, but it was really deep for me that I heard this story now, even though I heard it once already. And all I remembered was although maybe that was the main point, was the grandfather and grandson on the bench. You'll tell me if you agree with me. But I didn't remember all the details. A very, very deep story. It was a very deep night. Bichlav. I was zoche. It wasn't a concert. It wasn't Rav Shlomo came to make an appearance somewhere. It was an inside learning. Now, of course, learning was nigunim and stories and all of that together. Which, by the way, I've never ever met anybody. I know people who can teach. I know people who can sing. I know people who can tell stories, and I know people who can do more than one of those things. But I never met anybody who it was all one thing. I never met anybody like that except Rav Shlomo, Okay, now we're going to sing a nigun. No. It's not like, okay, that's the next thing on the schedule. That's where it's going, It's an amazing thing in the middle of this teaching. So Rav Shlomo says, somebody apparently wanted to ask him a question. So he said, please don't ask me a question now. I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah. Because, I think deeper than that, he was saying, listen, I'm going through something now. If you don't break it up now, right? Okay. So this is a story. The story is from 120 years ago. It was when Rav Shlomo said it was 100 years ago, so I'm just adding on the 20, He said it was a big a tremendous Talmid Chacham in Hungary. His name was Mordechai Winkler. And if Shlomo said anything I would say, it wouldn't be enough. He was tremendous Talmid Chacham. He was, all the levels. And the person who told the story, writes the story, is his grandson. So his grandson writes, my grandfather was such a great Rav, tremendous Gadol Talmid Chacham, but I never got to talk to him. Because he was always, learning and with people, and I never got to talk to him, and I was always, missing that connection with my grandfather. And one day, my grandfather was 89 years old, and he says to me, okay, I want us to go together away for a trip for a couple of days. The grandson writes, I was so excited, I was so happy, wow. Finally, I'll get some time with my grandfather, Mordechai Winkler. And he says, we're going to go on a trip to Pashent. Pashent, it's a town in Hungary. And I'll tell you on the train why we're going. Okay, we're on the train. And Rav Mordechai says to his grandson, he says, I'll tell you, when I grew up, my family, we didn't have any money. We're poor. And I started learning when I was 4 or 5. And, Baruch Hashem, by the time I was 9 years old, I already knew, a few Masechets by heart. And I said to my parents, I says, really sweet to be with you here. But, I can't learn here. There's no one to learn with here. I want to go learn in the big yeshiva in Pressburg. It was the Ktav Sofer's yeshiva, the Chatam Sofer's son. It was the biggest yeshiva in the whole area, I want to go learn there. So he's 9 years old. So, he said it wasn't like it was today, everybody knew everybody. So, we planned out the whole trip. We made a whole map of the whole trip, right? So I start out from here, and I'm going to walk a few hours. We'll get to this town. I'll stay with these people. And then the next day I'm going to walk from here. And we planned out the whole trip. I'm going to go walk to Pressburg, right? It'd take me a couple of weeks, but okay. Then our Shlomo says, but when you're on the way, you're a little bit infinite because you're not bound by the place, you're not bound by your home. So he says, I'm walking by one day, and there's this town, Pashent. And Pashent is awesome, beautiful, unbelievable. Everybody knew it was a beautiful place. It was a resort town. People used to come there for a resort. So he said, they would come for like their, in Hebrew there's the word nofesh, right? How do you say that in?
Recuperation.
Yeah. So he said, he was 9 years old. He said, I need a break also. So I want to just go to Pashent. So he goes to Pashent, but he said, everybody there stays in hotels. It's a rich resort town. It's not, I don't know anybody there. I don't have any money. So, I went to the park and I found a bench in the park and I made that my hotel. And I stayed there for 2 days. And he said, I learned all of Masechet Gittin in those 2 days. I went over it in my head. And he said, those were the 2 holiest days of my life. I was there alone with Hashem, learning his Torah. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody asked about me. It was just me and, just me and Hashem learning Torah, right? And he said, I want to go back with you to Pashent. I want to go back there with you, and I want to, sit there on my bench together. So the grandson writes, he says, when I heard that, my heart fell inside of me. I'm thinking to myself, my grandfather is probably senile. Pashent is this resort town. This is 80 years ago. There's no old benches there. You know, they redid all the benches for sure. He said, I know we're going to go to the park tomorrow. We're going to walk around looking for this bench. And he's like, I'm dreading the next day. You know, what's going to be? You know, well, so the next morning, they go to the park. And there's all these new benches there. And my grandfather walked straight over, and his bench was there. So one old bench left. And he said, his grandson was writing, he said, you know, I was shivering. You know, it was so holy for me, and we were there for 2 days on my grandfather's hotel, you know, on the bench in Peshent. And, you know, after that we went home, and I guess my grandfather knew what was going on, because 2 days later he passed away. And it was so broken, you know. And he sat there and he said, we sat for the Shiva. And after the Shiva, I said, I don't know where I'm going to go. He said, you know, the only place I can go is I have to go to that bench in Peshent. So I went there to Peshent, and I went to the park, and the bench wasn't there. So Rav Shlomo said, you know, and it was amazing things also I remembered. It was the night before the yahrtzeit of Rav Shlomo's brother, Rav Chaim. And I remember that he was talking about his brother that night. Apparently, his brother's Rabbi Berkowitz, I don't know who that is. I guess his son-in-law, his daughter were there, his grandchildren were there. So he was talking to them, and he said, you know, he said, my brother, but he was talking not just about his brother. He said, you know, they left us. And he said, you know, all these books, look at all these books. He said, they left us their benches. He said, this is what all the Rebbes left over is their holy benches, you know. And it's so deep for me because, you know, we learn Torah, and we learn Torah so, and all the levels, and every level you learn Torah, it's good, it's beautiful, in Bemet, and you should have a zchut, you know, even to learn on the most external level, just to learn, you know, sit and learn is an amazing thing. But the real truth of what we're learning is, what we learn, you know, in the Gemara, what we learn from all the Hasidic books, or learn from all the teachers who wrote books, all their words, we're not learning just the words they said. We're learning those moments where they were alone with Hashem, talking Torah. We're learning their benches. So, and in that sense, what I also felt Rav Shlomo was giving over was, if you really want to be connected all the way back, you have to learn Torah, not just, okay, you know, Rava said something, so I learned it in the Gemara, so, you know, I'm connected to Rava. That's true. The Gemara says even whenever you say over words from, you know, a Rav, from a Tana and a Mora, so their lips are moving in their kever, you know, you're saying it, you know, you're giving life to their Torah. But if you really want to be connected back, you have to learn, you know, I'm saying this the way Shlomo would say it, you have to learn their benches. You have to learn the inside place that they were connected to when they were given over. You know, and when I heard the story again now, like last week, you know, Rabbi Nachman said that when a tzaddik teaches, so the words in the book, that's the face of the tzaddik. And I was like, well, what is that? You know, what do you mean? It's a book, right? But the truth is, if you really connected to it, you're not just learning the words that this Rebbe said. what you're learning is those moments when he, she, whatever, was alone with Hashem talking Torah. And that's the Torah that connects us back. Connects us back. And as much as Rav Shlomo was giving over the bread, the hitchadshut, every moment is new, he was also giving over the wine. The wine, the connection all the way back. And the way that he gave it over, and he gave it over in all these different ways, but was to connect to the inside of what, even the stories that Rav Shlomo told. So Rav Eliyahu Sukkot, I know some of you know him, amazing neshama. I so had to see him a few times, and talk to him. So he said that, everybody knows Rav Shlomo would tell a story, and, it was exaggerated. He would say, oh, it was like 1,000,000 years, well, I've said it was 2 hours, don't, but Rav Eliyahu Sukkot said something very deep. He said, because Rav Shlomo knew that if you want to get to the heart of the story, to the truth of what's going on there, you need to exaggerate it in order to get to the inside of what it is. It wasn't a lie or it was the truth of it. Because that's the only way, we're very surface sometimes, we're very, okay, I want to learn it, know what it says, the pshat, and that's true. But that's not the real connection to the Torah that you're learning. The real connection to the Torah you're learning, and of course, Rav Shlomo, because he learned not just so much Torah, not just so many years that he was just learning Torah, but he learned from the deepest teachers, right? So he could give that over. And part of what taking that to the next level, if you want to call it, I don't know, to the next generation, to us, right? And Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of people in the room here in New Shlomo, and there's a lot of people here who didn't. And last night I was at the kever, and I was standing there with Sharia Witt, and there's all these, it's like maybe 40 people there, I don't know, 50, I don't know how many, and singing Shlomo, like really singing, like really. And I said to him, none of these people ever met him. It's amazing. The average age was probably like 24, 23, I don't know, people, nobody met, even the older people, a lot of them never really, I was like, well, how is that? They come here in the middle of the night to spend hours, and they never met him. So that's where we are, right? And to take that, it means we need to learn how to learn like that. And it's not easy, because you can't just, okay, I learned this Torah, I said something deep, oh great, yofi, I got it. It's not like that. Rav Shlomo said, about Chanukah, in Chanukah we talk about Ora Ganuz, right? So the Ora Ganuz, the Baal Shem Tov says, where is that light hidden? In the Torah, right? And so Rav Shlomo said, why? Because if you want to hide light, so you don't hide light in the darkness, you see it right away. Right? Where you're going to hide light, you have to hide it in light. What does that mean? He said sometimes people learn Torah, right? And, they get a certain level and they're like, oh, I got it, right? I have the light, right? No, and they do. But it's not the real light, right? It's just, okay, you got something, that's cute, but and that's what happens. The Or is Ganuz, right? It's hidden. Because in order to get to it, it needs time. It needs giving your life for it. It needs deep teachers, but it also needs a deep tefillah. I have to be davening, Moshe, I really want to hear it. And also I know there's levels on levels. You know, it's this awesome thing. Every year, we go through the same parshas. Every year. And if you're really learning, every year it's just something different, right? Well, what do you mean? You learned it last year, right? I mean, Avraham Avinu, he already gave water to these things. You know, it's been thousands of years already he's been giving water, you know. You want to tell me you learned something new? Yeah. Because there's always another level, right? There's always. And I felt when Rosh Shlomo was teaching that, he said, you know, and it's a whole long teaching I can't get into. It was Parshat Para, and he was talking about Chukah, and he was talking about ashes, and it was a really deep, deep learning. But you know what he was saying, and to me, now I hear it because that was my first meeting, but I only knew Shlomo a little bit, and I only met him 20 times, I don't know, 30 times, I don't know, can't count, but it's not very much. So somehow what he gave in that moment, in that teaching, is something I need to take in order to go with it, you know. It's one of the big teachings from Rabbi Nachman that I always, you know, Rabbi Nachman said, he said, if I had a Rebbe like you, he said that to his Hasidim, he said, if I had a Rebbe like you, I would walk all the way out by foot just to go see. So one of the Hasidim said, yeah, what would you do on the way home? He said, I would run. And it was so deep for me because for a lot of people, Rebbes, and the truth is, honestly, for Rav Shlomo also was like this for people, was you go there and you get your high. I just want to say, really in parentheses, you know, when he sang that nigun we sang at the beginning, so in the middle, he said, okay, we need to change to C minor. He said, I'm getting too high. so, but anyway, you know, it was high, it was deep, and then walk away and you have this sweet feeling in your heart and you miss it. But if it's real, then you take that and you run. Then it gives you strength and fire and kalim and light, whatever you need in order to go with that, right? If Rav Shlomo was, and I'm not saying anything bad about this, right? But if Rav Shlomo was, he had this beautiful nigunim, right? And you know, he told these stories, and you know, like when I hear the story, I feel connected again. If that's all it was, it's nice, it's good. I'm not, you know, like use one of Rav Shlomo's phrases. I'm not knocking it, right? But it's not just that. We're part of, you know, for me, when I met Rav Shlomo, so probably age-wise it's also true, you know, I felt I was meeting like a grandfather. It was a deep thing that's what he was teaching that night, you know, but you know, it's taking that teaching from our grandfathers, from our grandfather, from that generation, and the generation before, and taking it, being with it for real in this moment here now. Ba'et hazot, what's our heart? What does it mean now? Because the world, and Rav Shlomo was one of the amazing people to understand that in his life the world was changing. It's not like, okay, we have this answer and it just that's going to be the answer all the time. It's not going to be the answer all the time. It's different. It changes. Because I take all that Torah and all that knowledge and all that deep secrets and I go and I say, okay, how does that apply here? You know, it's the same simple thing that every person who learns halacha does. It's the same thing. It's like, okay, we have all these teachings and now, okay, here's this moment. What does it mean now? It's the same thing. But of course, it's not just on halacha, it's on life, and so all these teachings. And of course, nigunim are also teachings. It's a deeper level because it's hard to explain a little bit what you're learning. Sometimes you can explain, sometimes you can't. But it's And I take it and okay, now I'm here. I'm here 24 years later. And what does that mean now? How do I take that bench when the bench is gone? But the bench isn't really gone, right? Because he sat there with him on the bench, right? That was the whole thing his grandfather was giving over. It's like, okay, I need to give over to you this bench because it's the physical bench isn't going to be here forever. So we need to do this now because I'm leaving the world and you need to take that and you need to go and you need to give that over. And everybody, it's on whatever level it is, you know, I mean, some people are teachers, some people are, you know, gardeners, whatever it is, you know, everybody's got their nikuda, right? That's their thing that they're giving over to the world. But in that place, we need not just the bread, we need the wine. And the way to get to the wine is to really, you know, not to go too deep into this, but the Gemara says, there's a pasuk from Parshat Para. It says, "Zot haTorah Adam ki yamut be'ohel." Right. This is the Torah. This is the teaching. A person who dies in the tent, and then it's a whole teaching about impurity. But the Gemara says, you know what that means? That the Torah really is given over to those who give their life for it. That doesn't mean to die for it, right? In a physical sense, it means that's who the Torah gives itself over to. And I feel, and it's a special schut, you know, Be'emet, I could go on and on. I could sit with you and listen to that whole hour and a half, and I could then spend another year and a half, you know, unpacking what I got from it. But that's really, or that's the second point, right? That's the wine. What did we get? Not what did we get, oh, how beautiful was it? That's also good. It's beautiful. And Rabbi Nachman says sometimes when you're really down, one of the things you really pick yourself up is remember a time when you were connected. You know, if you go back there, then that gives you a lot of chayut. That's beautiful. But it's more than that. It's deeper than that. It's what did I get that I'm taking with me and that means something now? Now where I am in this place with these people who weren't there with me then. And I don't know, I probably know some people who were there that night. I didn't know anybody except this rabbi who took me, and my friend, the three of us came, but I already heard about somebody that I know who was there. I didn't know them then, but they were there. So this was special, you know, to have experienced something together with it. I hear what it was, but a little bit, you know, a little bit these two things. So I would like to sing with you a little bit, just as amazing thing. It's the last nigun I heard from Rav Shlomo. He was playing at this concert here in Gansaker for the settlers. It was a very special event. I was waiting outside the whole time. I didn't have a ticket, and my friend said, "I'll bring you a ticket." And amazingly enough, there's somebody who was later than Rav Shlomo. And he just didn't come, you know, he showed up like right after the concert finished, you know. So I'm waiting, and then Rav Shlomo started this, and I said, forget it, I'm going in, I don't care. I didn't realize I could have done that a half an hour before that, but anyway, it was the last song of the night. And I'll sing it with you in a minute. And the amazing thing is he sang it the first night I saw him also. That was it blew my mind when I heard, because I didn't remember that, but it was the first night also. So I'm just sharing with you, just very personally, you know, but so he started, this is when he first started talking, he said, you know, there's inside eyes and there's outside eyes. You know, people imagine, he said, imagine, and it's an amazing thing because I've used this mashal a million times in my classes, and I didn't realize that I actually got it from Rav Shlomo until I heard it again. So he said, imagine you see somebody lying there on an operating table, they're about to take him in to get an operation. Then you see the doctor come with a big knife. And if you don't know what's going on, you think, oh my God, it's going to kill him. It's so sad, right? But if you know what's going on, you say, oh, he's going to save his life, right? So he said, if you have inside eyes, right? And this was right after the Gulf War. And he said, Hashem's doing a big, big fixing in the world. And he said, sometimes Hashem does fix things in a moment. And sometimes it takes a long time. And he said, but what I want to say is, sometimes it's so hard for us. When is the world going to know what the Jewish people are? And I would add my own, and when are we going to know what the Jewish people are also? But he said, if you have outside eyes, he said, the outside eyes world is that they already gave up on themselves a long time ago. Just give up. So we have inside eyes. He says, but we have a dream. And it's one of the prayers, special prayers, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And he said, and then he played a chord and he started singing. He said, V'yet hayuchol le'odecha v'yevarechu Shem kevodecha. He said, we have this dream, the whole world is going to come together in Yerushalayim. We're going to pray to Hashem together. V'yet hayuchol le'yodecha v'yevarechu Shem kevodecha v'yagidu v'yim tzidkecha
Once again, there's another shir now from Simcha. And if you want to receive our mailings, you didn't sign in yet, please do. If you want to give some tzedakah to the yeshiva, the box is on the table. This is the new phone camera. Buy it, you get one of the older ones for free. There's the money for the gold camera goes to this guy.